who he is and what he does, so that we can jump into this personal finance conversation. So Mr. Mack, please introduce yourself to the people who may not be familiar with you, who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Ryan Mack. I'm president of Optimum Capital Management, also a director of financial education for Mobility Capital Finance. And my entire platform has really been about teaching financial literacy to our individuals of all income levels. I spent about 6 years on Wall Street as a stock trader. I left Wall Street in order to, because quite frankly, my aunt asked me a question of what is a stock? And I realized at that time that my own family didn't know what I was doing every single day. It's the largest NASDAQ trading firm in the world. I said, my family doesn't know about this. Well, who else doesn't know about this? So we formed, I interviewed with other different organizations. And they at that point in time said, well, the one organization, I won't give the name, but they said, unless you only work with high net worth individuals, everybody else is a waste of time. So at that, I knew I was in the wrong place then, because if I was leaving Wall Street as a stock trader to go and educate the masses about financial education and buying stocks and all those things, then I didn't only want to work with just individuals who are rich. I wanted to work with everybody, especially my people. And so I decided to decline that offer. I interviewed with other organizations. I got many offers, but they ended up being more so product pushers. They wanted to sell things based upon commission as opposed to based upon what's right. So I didn't believe in that strategy either. So I put together a strategy, a marketing strategy to say, let's start Optimum Capital Management. This was 2004 in September. And we started Optimum Capital Management, which actually has the platform of making sure that we educate individuals of all income levels of financial literacy and education. I spent a lot of my time in prisons. I spent a lot of my time working with youth aging out of foster care. I spent a lot of my time working with those individuals who are veterans and homelessness. And I've spent a lot of my time in homeless shelters. But I also spend my time, and I've done workshops for Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank and all those highfalutin folks that have a little bit of money, but they have questions too about their 401ks. So with Mobility Capital Finance now, we're doing a lot of work with different unions across the country. We're doing a lot of work with cities, citywide, where we're doing virtual technology or virtual financial education for entire cities. New York is one where we're trying to solidify something now. Here in New York now, we're solidifying that. But the overall mission is just making sure that everyone from nuts to soup gets the message in the memo that no matter how much money or a little money or a lot of money you have, as a matter of fact, the less money you have, the more you need to learn these principles, because it actually impacts you greater, which is, as you know, and I'm sure that the school has been teaching that many individuals believe that it's only for rich people. And we all might want to be rich one day, but that's certainly not all rich. So we can, no matter what income level they're at. I've done a lot of work out here. A lot of my friends out here, former gang members or current gang members, it doesn't matter. I don't discriminate. Where we just really want to make sure that they are using their skills for the greater good of the community as opposed to the destruction of the community. And I do believe that the economic struggle is a struggle that if we get it right, we'll be able to take precedence over every other struggle that we've had, because then we'll be able to control and have ownership over what we're able to do on a long-term basis, and not just trying to ask this politician to do something for us that we might be able to do something for ourselves. So that's been something I know Boyce has been teaching that a lot. I know I've been teaching that a lot. So happy to be here talking to you.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. You talked about principles. So I want to kind of hone in on that, because especially when we're talking about our community, you also talked about people who have money, people who don't have money. So a lot of times people think in order to be financially secure, in order to have money in your 401k, in order to invest money, that you have to have money. And you specifically said that you talk to people who may not have hundreds of thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars to invest. What are some principles that people should operate in that do not have hundreds of thousands of dollars, but should want to be financially secure? So specifically speaking to our community, a mom maybe $50,000, $60,000 a year. That's actually a lot, like $40,000 to $50,000 a year. What are some principles she should operate in to make sure that she's financially secure in the long run?
Well, I mean, I've taught individuals in homeless shelters financial education. So it's not even $50,000, $60,000. How about no $1,000 a year, $0,000 a year? I mean, those are principles that we've taught going from the homeless shelter on up. And one homeless shelter we taught was one principle of credit. Many individuals who are homeless or just coming out of prison having issues in terms of getting job or getting employment. So one of the things that we've done is help to get their credit together, making sure that they are getting that secured credit card, making sure that they are trying to put together a budget for whatever little money they do have and figure out where they can invest most responsibly. You have to, many homeless individuals go and help start businesses and go to Ink It Now and see what they can try to get going and start to get some level of income. But as far as a single parent analogy, I think I can use my own mother for that. I was a single parent, and my mother actually was the best financial advisor I've ever met, and she was making at that point maybe $12,000-$13,000 a year. Which is not an atypical story in Detroit. Welfare. We ate the cheese that didn't melt in the oven. Had to turn we had a black and white television. We had the pliers and the hangers and all that, those types of things, in order to watch television on that black and white television. But it was because of what I saw my mother do, where she started to put basic principles in place where she would do certain things, like she would go to Saks Fifth Avenue and she would window shop. She couldn't afford to buy any of those things there because she was making $12,000-$13,000 a year, still got 2 kids to feed. So, but she would window shop and see, what are the rich people buying? What are they buying? And what can I do in order to fake it till I make it, so to speak? So she would go back on her side of town and go to the thrift store. And for $5 and $10 an outfit, buy the exact same type of thing she saw on the window shop at Saks Fifth Avenue, because according to her budget, she couldn't afford that, but she could afford those things at the thrift store and the resale shop. And she became the best and sharpest, best dressed person at her job. And really, from her perspective, what changed was not her outfit. It wasn't the fact that she was budgeting. It was her mindset. And her mindset became of such that she said, there's something that's out there that's going to be greater for me. And she taught me a very valuable financial education principle called contentment. Contentment does not mean I'm happy to be broke. Contentment means that despite the fact that I'm broke, I can still smile, knowing that tomorrow a better, brighter day is going to come. So within that state, I'm not happy with my state. I'm happy in my state. And and I never knew a sad day growing up. I mean, she had many days where she might have shed some tears, but she definitely shielded that from us as her children. But what she did do was really just show us happiness, make us happy with that $5 Christmas gifts under the tree, because that was all in her budget to afford at the time. But we were happy with that. And so we didn't know Tony the Tiger. We just had the white box that the government gave us with the black letters that said cornflakes on it. So that's all we understood growing up. But we were happy. We were very content. And she was able to she bought, even though she didn't have that much money, she said, you know what, my kids are going to school one day, so I'm going to start buying some bonds for savings. And with a little bit of money, she had nickels and dimes. She would put the nickels and dimes together and buy $50 bonds, and put one together here, put one together there, knowing that sooner enough, one day my children are going to be going to school and they're going to need these. And that's what financial literacy and education really is all about. It's about preparing yourself to going for where you're going, not where you're at. Whenever you go on a trip, I went to South Africa on a mission trip, and in that South Africa trip, I looked at the weather not for New York where I was living. I looked at the weather for South Africa, and I packed according to where I was going. And so when you're dealing with financial literacy and education, you're packing for where you're going. So all the principles of learning how to budget, learning how to put together, learning your credit, making sure that you're avoiding all the sales of Black Friday type sales, trying to get you to spend your money that you don't even have, the press that you don't even like. So all these things are things that you have to start packing with you, starting from right now. So, well, Ryan, I shouldn't have to worry about an IRA. Well, you know what? And I've had many individuals do just this: open up an IRA account at a broker firm. You don't even have any money in it, and just do it because one day it might not be for 5 or 6 years from today, but one day you're going to be putting money in that IRA account. So you might as well go ahead and start getting ready today to get prepared for where you're going tomorrow. And that's that principle of that mindset of that gets you going. And again, it's truth versus facts. You can believe the facts might say, man, I got $0 in my bank account. But the truth, if you believe that tomorrow I've been promised abundance, I can start to say and start to prepare myself to make my truth change my facts. And facts are things that you can see. That's scientifically proven. But the truth is things that are unseen. And so we have to hear according to the things that we don't even see. And that's what we listen to those words that make us believe that things are going to be coming and make a better and brighter day. So these are just basic principles I want folks to grasp. Along with my 7 steps of financial freedom, we teach those a lot. And we can start doing those things and get excited about it and make financial literacy cool, we're going to be all right.
I mean, you said a lot of great things. I think one of the things that you said that really struck with me and resonates with me. I actually have a son that will be 18 on Sunday. I can't even believe I say I've been 18 on Sunday.
Right.
And I talked to him about a lot of the things that you just said. I prepare him for things for his 25-year-old self, because there's a lot of things that 17, 18, he doesn't want to talk about. He doesn't want to be thinking about money. He doesn't want to be thinking about budgeting. He hates pulling out his checkbook and balancing it. But and he gets mad, Mom, I don't even use these things. And I'm like, you don't use them today, boo, but when you're 25, you're going to use them. I'm trying to get you ready and prepared for what's going to come. You haven't even experienced these things yet, but you need to be prepared for them. And I talked to him a lot about, when we were growing up, we were coming up, our parents were just getting a handle on finances, and financial literacy wasn't as big as it is today. So having these principles and understanding personal finance and understanding stocks and understanding, the ways of the world from a financial perspective are crucial. Even if you're not using them right now, even if you only have $0, even if you're not making the money that you want to make, getting the mindset, as you said, together so that you can be prepared for the day when that money comes in. So let's talk about that. What preparation? And so let me say this. Let me say a couple of things. Number one, if you are in the group chat, hello and welcome. Thank you for being with us. If you have a question for Ryan, put it over in the comments in the chat, and I will definitely propose it to him so that we can get your questions answered. Also, I wanted to tell, I want both Yvette. I see your question. And I'm going to ask it right now because he was just talking about this. So I want both Yvette is asking a question about something you said earlier with regards to, I'm assuming, candidates in office. And the question is, why does it have to be either or? Why can't some of you run for office to advocate for economic progress for Black communities as well?
Absolutely. I just ran for school board in Detroit, Michigan. And because I wanted to be a part of the process, I run for political office. I didn't make it. There was 75 candidates. I came in 14th. I didn't spend any money because I wasn't trying to spend money for a non-paid position. But I'm very active. I'm a part of my Democratic committee. So we do a lot of different things, and we help folks canvass, and we do all those types of things. I also march. I've marched for Laquan McDonald and for Black Friday in Chicago. I've marched for Freddie Gray and down in Baltimore. I marched for Tamir Rice in Cleveland. Helped block the bridge here in Brooklyn for Eric Gardner. So I'm very active. And again, I absolutely agree. It doesn't have to be either or. It should be both. But the thing is that I do believe that we are in a climate now where the focus has been so much on politics. It's been so much on what others can do for us. And sometimes when you're talking about self-empowerment, it almost becomes almost like where you're trying to be Republican, or it almost demonizes individuals saying that you need to have some level of accountability for what we're doing for ourselves. And I think that because we're so focused on politics, which I'll always focus on, we have to also include economics in that situation, because again, that's one thing that we have full control over, starting from right now, starting from today. And I guess maybe I'm a little bit biased because I am an economics guy and I'm a finance guy. So, but truthfully known, there is not one thing that's more important than another. I mean, if you have a car and the engine's busted and the fan belt is busted, you can try to argue about which one's more important in order to get it fixed. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a fan belt, you're not driving that car just as much. If you don't have an engine, you're not driving that car. So one might cost more than the other, but both are just as valuable in order to make sure you can move forward. So that's what financial literacy is to me. Whether you think financial education or economics is the fan belt or the engine, that it's needed, and it's not being talked about right now. It's not being discussed because there is a cliche thing. For instance, right, those individuals on welfare receiving temporary assistance or some sort of temporary assistance from the government. Can we not work with them, which I do? I do a lot of public housing tours, going into public housing, work with those individuals in public housing. My goal in there is not to just make them feel good about living in public housing. I want to make them feel good about themselves no matter where they live, no matter if you're in the high tower or whether you're down on living under a bridge. And I do a lot of work with those individuals who are in the bridge. I bring them pizza all the time and we kick it. But my goal is to say, I want you to say, is there something that's out there greater for you? And then can you strive to be greater for this? Because bottom line is we are in a struggle right now with those individuals in public housing. receiving that subsidy, especially in New York and across this country. I've had multiple meetings with Ben Carson. They are cutting like crazy. And the things I've told Dr. Carson are the very same things I can say to you right now. And I said, look, I don't agree with your cuts. I don't agree with you taking away some of those things that are really helping the least of those. But what can we do to make sure that we can together help those while you're cutting? If you're dead set on cutting, how can we help them make sure they become self-sustainable? Because whether or not we do this work or not, they're going to cut. And Meals on Wheels is in jeopardy. And food and subsidies for food and education, all those things are being taken away from us. And so I don't agree with it. I don't think most individuals, even Republicans on the other side of the aisle, agree with that. But in the meanwhile, there are some things that we need to start doing right now to make sure that our people are protected, in addition to advocating politically as well, which I've done as well. So it's a great question.
Okay, good. So D. Williams says, how do we reach the youth with this information? So how do we teach our youth about financial literacy, about stocks, about credit, so that they don't grow to be 35, 40 trying to fix what they messed up in their 20s. I was telling my son, because he's getting ready to go to college, I was like, I was 18. The first thing I did when I set foot on that college campus was get a credit card, because they was standing there waiting for me. And at that time, I didn't have any credit education. I know what credit was. He's turning 18, and I'm like, you're going to be able to write checks, more checks. You're going to be able to get credit. There's all these things you're going to be able to do. And I saw the cha-ching sign go off in his eye, and I'm like, no, there's things you have to know. There's things you have to be prepared. So how do we teach this information to the youth and make them hungry to be more financially literate so that they don't have to play catch up or back up to it when they're in their 30s and 40s?
When I was, my first youth group that I've ever created was called All About Business. And the first thing I did with them was what many of us have done, especially as being older and knowing everything. We go in there and we start teaching youth and just start telling them what they need to think about and this and that. And we're talking to them. And we're talking to them and talking to them. And I'm not seeing any bulbs going on. I'm understanding what's going on. Why are they not being engaged? And so I lively up the type of a conversation, but I'm still talking from one side of the conversation. But youth want to be heard just as much as they want to be educated. So I had to turn the table around, and I took All About Business and became a more back and forth type of involvement. And I said, you know what? We've been learning this stuff for a long enough time now. Y'all need to start taking responsibility of this information. And so I said, the next workshop that I got called by a local assemblyman at the time, Dr. Kareem Kamara, an assemblyman in Brooklyn. And he said, Ryan, I got a workshop I want you to teach. I said, no, I'll do the workshop. I said, but you know what? I'm not going to teach the workshop. I'm going to have my youth teach it. And I went back to them and I told them, you're going to teach this workshop to these adults because you all have been teaching. You learned this information for 6 months at this point. Now I want you to take responsibility and accountability for teaching your people in your community this information. And they got worried, they got scared, but at that point, the light bulbs went off that, wow, we have to learn this stuff. So they studied harder than I've ever seen them study this content. They were calling me all hours of the night, and they went up and they did a great job of teaching adults about credit, money management, budgeting, saving, and the best way to learn something is to teach it. So that cohort became the basis of All About Business. And some of these, we had a Black Enterprise did an article about us. And these kids, they're all grown up now and doing phenomenal things. And they're making great money. They're working for Apple. But they were hungry, so hungry to just learn this information because I gave them that. I said, I passed the baton to them. We've got to get out of our own way when it comes to teaching youth. And you might know everything. You might be the smartest person on this planet. But get out your own way. Let the kids have a voice. They have a voice. They're hungry to learn. And these kids nowadays are brilliant. They're bright. They have drive. Your child, I'm sure, is the same thing. They are ready to be leaders. And what we've done is we have not done a good enough job of passing the torch on to that next generation and allowing them to have the platform that we've coveted for ourselves. We want to be the ones on the spotlight, right? We want to be the ones. No, you know what? Get out the way. Let those kids step on up. Let them speak. In many workshops I've done, I've just been basically just an introduction. And I introduce them, and they go about their merry way, and they're more powerful than I am. I might think I'm doing something, but when you see that 16-year-old kid get up there and just rock it, then I'm looking like a little small, a little molehill compared to what this guy is doing or this young girl is doing. So they got scholarships, they got internships, all sorts of things. So that's what I just advocate for folks to do all the time, and I've always doing it. We got to learn how to pass the torch effectively, give these kids a platform, and get them excited about it by giving them the responsibility of having to teach it to their own people. Because once they become to see themselves as a leader that they can be, then they're going to own it. Then they're going to want to teach it more effectively.
Yeah, when the time came for my son to start taking care of himself and paying his own bills or even paying bills in general, I started sitting him down when I did the budget. So I sat him down when I did the budget. I sat him down and showed him how to pay bills, like what the bills are and how much money is coming out of my account and what's going on. And I remember one time, I teach by, I don't know the right word to use. I'm over the top. So he had the electric bill, and I noticed it wasn't paid. And I called the electric company. I was like, yeah, my electric bill hasn't been paid. They were like, yeah, you're going to be disconnected. I was like, all right, cool. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to let this thing be disconnected or not? And I was like, no, I'm going to let it get disconnected. And so they did disconnect it. And he came home one day. He was like, Mom, there's no electricity. And I'm like, did you pay the bill? No. Well, baby, that's why there's no electricity. What do I do? Right. Well, let me tell you what you do. Let me tell you, the electricity has never been turned off since then. And now he's more adamant and on top of paying bills because he didn't. I only had my electricity turned off on me one time because I made a bad choice. I decided to go out of town instead of pay my electric bill. And when I came home, everything in my refrigerator was destroyed. And it was a bad experience. But I was like 26. So I taught him this lesson at 17. So he doesn't ever have to have his lights turned off again. But bringing your children into the process and teaching them about bills and finances and understanding credit, that helps. Don't just talk at them, show them. And a lot of times parents don't want to show their money. They don't want to show their finances. They don't want to show how to go about paying bills, but it's helpful. It's very useful. Now my son, he'll be like, Mom, did you pay the electric bill? Yes, baby, the electric has been paid. But it gets them involved. So Larry says, what is the best way to automate saving and investing if you're just starting out?
Well, there's a great book out there by David Bach called The Automated Millionaire. And he goes over a lot of those principles. I think it's a really great book. And as a financial advisor, when I was practicing, one of the best things that I would do was to try to make sure that, especially for the 401k, for your 403b, your company retirement plan, that's through your benefits department. You can automate it pretty easily with those things. And then also the best way too is to make sure your budget is set up beforehand. I've seen many individuals, they automate. It's easier now to automate things than ever before. When I first got into financial planning, you really had to go through some steps. Online banking was still relatively new and people were getting used to it, getting acclimated. And most of the individuals I worked with back then didn't even look to have an online bank account. Most people still use checks, and now checking is gone by the wayside. I mean, we don't even teach in high school anymore how to write a check. That used to be the big thing, how to write a check. But no one teaches those type of things anymore because everything's being automated. So it's being easier now before. From an automated perspective, every morning, it's very easy. Every morning, take 3 minutes, 2 minutes, maybe even 30 seconds, and just check your account and make sure you did for identity theft, make sure your money's there. And that's one of the things that we can do every single morning. I do that the first thing in the morning after I say my prayers in the morning, check on my account, make sure that at the end of the day, I don't have any identity theft. But it also does, when you check your account, it gives you a visual gauge, especially if you're on a budget. It gives you a visual gauge of, okay, how much money am I spending? How much money is my account? What sort of things hit my account from last night? You might have had a couple of bills that hit, your phone bill that was automated hit, or something hit. And you had, X amount of $1,000 in there before, and now it's $300 less. It's like, wait a minute, I just lost. Where'd that come from? Oh, okay, that bill hit, that bill hit, and it's a constant reminder of what's being spent. And when you're looking at, especially from the biggest wealth building principle, is interest in versus interest out. Where interest in is basically all those things that when you put money into for saving, you're putting money into these different savings accounts and you're earning interest, as opposed to interest out where you're paying interest on bills, on your mortgage, on your credit cards, all those types of things. What you have to do is make sure that interest in becomes the precedent. So when you automate your things, make sure you're well budgeted, make sure you're checking it once a day every morning. Make sure you know exactly what you're automating. You have a clear account of what you have automated. And then if you can't afford your bills, stop making bills. Many of us have started to create bills, are paying for things that are stuck in our beds for that workout equipment that we never used in the past year, but we still paying on it. So a lot of this stuff out in the garage or something. So, or timeshares that people never go to or never use or have never been to in a couple of years, but they're still paying on it. All these types of things, especially in the automation age, are still coming out of their account, but we're not taking an account for it. So we just have to the budget is the best and most important thing to make sure that you're doing that first, because you don't want to overdraft. You can do that moving forward.
Man, you made so many great points. My mom, a single mom of 3, and literally crawled her way up into 6 figures. And I look at her all the time and I'm like, Mom, every time I see you sit at the computer, she literally checks her bank account every day. She's like pulling her budget out. If something comes around, she's like, I gotta go check my budget. I'm like, you just checked the budget 2 days ago. Why change that drastically? But it literally is the reason why she's been able to pay off her debt. Her credit score is up to close to 800. She just bought a brand new 2018 Lexus for her birthday. Lexus RX.
All right now.
But,
amazing.
Man, but she had a financial plan. She's like, in 2 to 3 years, I want to pay off this much debt. I want to retire by here. I want this car to be paid off. And she has literally worked her plan. She's got her debt down. Her credit went up. She walked in, put $10,000 cash down. Was like, I want that. I hadn't even test drove it, but literally just walked in. That's the car I want. Here's 10,000 deuces. I'll see you later. But it was because she worked the plan. She's on top of her finances. She's looking at her bank account every day. And I used to think that is a lot of work. But let me tell you, when I saw her drive that Lexus up, I've been home checking my bank account, looking at my fees, looking at my stuff. And I've seen the change in my finances when I became more aggressive in monitoring them. So those are really good points, especially for somebody. If you're somebody out there who's on a budget, you still got to be a steward over your little things so that you can be prepared for your big things. So those are some really good points. All right. So
I read that somewhere.
Man, I was reading it with you. Okay. So Chuck says, how do you work on mindset towards money? Like, what are some strategies you use for shifting your mindset towards building wealth?
Well, that's a great question, because the mindset, the principles like contentment. Can you work on how to be content in your state? Not with your state, but in it. So one of the things that you do is write down all the positive things that you've done, right? And sometimes we're so content on, we're so dead set on always reminding us the guilt, the shame, the worry. We look at ourselves, don't compare yourself to other individuals, okay? Your road, your financial road is yours and yours alone. Don't work that greed or that guilt that you have about spending too much money last week, or you might have went to the club and spent a couple $100, whatever. Let that go. You got to let the guilt go. You got to let the shame go. You look at yourself in the mirror and say, man, I wish I was further along than I was right now. The motto is better late than later. And you starting. You got to get going. So write down all the things that happen that you've been blessed by positively. And write them down, because when you write down, I call it a positive log. Because if you do something small, like starting my budget, just write it down in a journal. You started a business, you got your Inkit Now, you went to Inkit Now and you got your LLC, got that on such and such a date. Write it down in your log. And if you ever get down, if you ever start to feel just worried or just bogged down by life, and it happens to everybody, and I know I'm not talking to myself, look at that log and say, man, I've got a lot of reason to be happy. I've got a lot of reason to be grateful. I've done a lot of good things. And I might have made some mistakes, but guess what? These are the things I've done positively. And I'm still here. I still got a pulse, so I know I still got a purpose. So let me go ahead and fulfill this purpose and see whatever I can do to make this world a better place. Because bottom line is, I fight so hard for this because I know that money is not the end goal in this whole thing. Money, my job is really just making sure that we can remove the worry of money so you can achieve your true purpose. And while we all have the same exact purpose, which is making this world better, but we do it in different ways. Everybody doesn't, it's all different, but it's all the same. So we have to make sure that whatever that way is, if your purpose is being an accountant, help people with their taxes, or if your purpose is saving lives. I just did a workshop last night out here with SEIU. People do home care and they're saving lives. Or if your purpose is cleaning up schools, being a janitor, and making sure that kids have a clean school that they can learn in every single day. All that is valuable. So what we don't want to do is have you worried and staying up all night, worried about some doggone thing like money. Money is just a tool. It's a small thing, a part of life, and it's a small part of life. There are five different things of prosperity, right? You got spiritual prosperity, meaning that you've achieved a certain level of desire in life according to a higher calling, that you're spiritually prosperous, no matter what you serve. I know who I serve, but no matter what you serve. Socially prosperous and making sure that you're giving back to your community and making your community better. Physically prosperous, meaning that you are healthy and that you're trying to live right. I know I got a little love sack down here I'm trying to get rid of myself, so I'm trying to become more physically prosperous. Financially prosperous, and then you got mentally prosperous, having a strong mindset, and then really don't be so down on yourself. We are so, and many of us are overly critical about what we've done and who we are, and we rag on ourselves so much, we take away the opportunity and the blessing that what we have inside of us for what we have the opportunity to be great, because there's something out there that wants you to continue to remind you of what you can't do to stop you from really blessing what other individuals are. They're waiting on it. Yep. There's a child waiting on that clean school for you to start that janitorial business. There's a person waiting on that table for you to be a nurse to, and make sure you can sit. While you're worried about money, you're taking away the blessing that you should be giving to other people. So my job is to take that worry away from you so you can focus on your true purpose and really make this world a better place.
I like that. Okay, so Kayla says, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you answer it. We're in the process of buying a home, and my husband wants to finance a truck thereafter, after being the operative word, because you don't want to do it before. Is this wise to do?
Well, I would give a little time, because you're taking out a level of debt, and of course that question, it all depends. If you got a boatload of capital and you got a boatload of money, and you're able to take out that mortgage, and you bought a house, and you still got a whole boatload of money just waiting to buy that additional truck, then hey, not a problem. Do your thing. Your credit, if your credit, you've checked your credit. But what I would do is just make sure that every decision that you make is done very deliberately and intentionally to make sure it's slow. I know you want your truck, but you say, you know what? Let's take the truck off the table for right now. I know you want it. Let's take it off the table right now. Let's deal with this house. For most individuals, that house is probably going to be the biggest investment they've done in their entire lives. And so when you do that investment of a new house, you want to go to different sites like fincalc.com and do an affordability measurement. You want to start acting like you own it. If you're renting right now, for those individuals trying to buy a house, I always say act like you own your home, even if you're renting. So whatever your rent is, take $200 extra and make sure to act like your mortgage is $200 more than your current rent, and start paying that mortgage every month. That $200 goes in your savings account. So start doing various things. When you call your landlord to get the plumbing fixed, act like you paid the landlord. When you go to, when your landlord has to fix the leaky roof and put a new roof on it, act like you have to put a new roof on it. You say, but all that, every time you're acting like you own it, you're putting money into your savings account. So you're acting like you're owning that home. So do that first. Do all those steps on that home first. Get into your home. Start reestablishing. Now, you're going to take a little dent because you're taking out a mortgage. Your FICO score is going to be hurt a little bit because you're taking on additional debt. But then now start building up your credit score, getting yourself into a better situation, and then saying that we've got ourselves financially in order. Now let's start worrying about financing the new truck. If you need that new truck right now just to get back and forth, and you can't get back to work, you might get fired, or if there's something that's detrimental right now to you that you have to have a truck right now, otherwise you can't work, then that's a different story. But if you can hold off on waiting for it and make sure you get that house together first, I would do that first and then compartmentalize, then go on to worry about that truck after you've got your situation in order.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see what else we have. All right, so Mary says, if you have a second mortgage from a property that was purchased in 2006 that you're going to do a short sale on, how does the second affect your credit, and why is it not showing on my credit? Is that something you can answer?
Yeah, well, the second mortgage should be on your credit report. I don't know if she looked at all three of her credit reports, but if she's got a second mortgage, it absolutely should be on your credit report. If she's going to do a short sale, she wants to make sure that be in constant communication with that bank to see exactly how much is going to be the short sale. Has she put her home, how long is that sale? long has that house been on the market? Can she negotiate with it? And she also wants to look at what are going to be the financial ramifications from that short sale. Many individuals think that, well, from a short sale, I can just walk away and I don't have to own anything. Well, in many cases, they do have to own something. So she wants to talk to the bank, work something out with the bank. Many of these banks, you might be able to strike a good deal with the bank. I mean, negotiate with the bank. Banks don't want to necessarily have that additional property, that debt on their balance sheet. They might want to say, you know what, let's work something out. Well, maybe you can continue to make payments on it. So for the most part, I would think that second mortgage would be on a credit report. If it's not, maybe it's an oversight. Hey, 75% of all credit reports have errors on them. I would go to annualcreditreport.com and check all 3 reports. But then I would also talk to and get copies of all 3. There are different resources that you can actually talk to that can pull your credit report for free. I know I used to work with Operation Hope. They can pull your report for free and make sure to see all those different types of things. And so it's a soft hit. It's not a hard pull. It's a soft pull. So check the report at Operation Hope or USnapBack or National Foundation of Credit Counselors. All of these offer free financial education and free credit repair counseling. You should never pay a dime for credit repair, by the way. But go to them, get those reports pulled for free. Make sure you have it on there. Talk to the bank, be in constant communication. And obviously, if she's trying to make a short sale, maybe it might be something that's going on where she has to get out of that piece of property. But talk to the bank, negotiate. A lot of banks are a little bit more willing to negotiate because of what they went through 2007, 2008. What the banks have learned is that by actually talking to people, heaven forbid that we actually talk to people that we work with, by actually talking to folks and negotiate, you might actually get a better deal together that actually works out for you and the bank. So be in communication with them as well. But I hope that helped a little bit.
Awesome. All right, so we're getting down to the time. So we're gonna, but I still want to get through all these questions, you guys. So, Mr. Mack, Roth IRA versus IRA. What's your take on them? Do you have a preference?
What it really is all about paying money now or later. Is Uncle Sam, look, Uncle Sam wants his money. And that's the way I look at it. Uncle Sam says, look, you're going to pay me. So are you going to pay me now? You're going to pay me later. Okay? So the Roth IRA is, okay, look, let me take your money right now. And then you put your money in it and it grows that way. Or with the IRA, it says, okay, you can start growing up your money and then you can take your money out later. For those individuals, for me personally, but again, every person is different. So if someone says that this one thing is always going to be better than the other, don't listen to them. Use your own personal gut. For me personally, it's the Roth IRA. When I was eligible for it, I was liking the Roth IRA because I knew that at the end of the day, I was going to be able to know exactly what my money's going to be when I took my money out. And I think that has value to it. But with the traditional IRA, the theory is that with a traditional IRA, when you take your money out, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. That's not necessarily always the case, especially now. There are a lot of folks that are working until their later years because they have to, and they might want to work till 65. They mean full retirement age of Social Security is about 63 years old. So you might be working at 65 or 66, where you're eligible to take the money out, but you're still making an income where if you took your money out, you're being taxed at a higher rate. So it really all depends upon your personal preference. Again, this is really just pay me now, pay me later. I personally prefer the Roth IRA because, again, when I was eligible for it, I knew exactly what was going to happen when I took my money out when it came due.
That makes good sense. All right, Mr. Hush Harris, what percentage should you apply towards 401k, and how much should you invest in the stock market if you don't make more than $40,000 a year?
Well, with the 401k, if it's not more than $40,000 a year, I would start very small and gradually increase. Okay, with the 401k, start out and see what 5% feels like. Okay, again, see what 5% feels like. But again, that also depends on too with the 401k. Does your company match? Does the company not match? And before you start putting money in your 401k, do you have a budget together? Because now, especially if you're making under $40,000 a year, it's time to make sure that there's an assignment for every dollar that comes into your household. You have to have an assignment for every single dollar that goes in and out of your house. So you can't know what that assignment is unless it's budgeted. Okay, so you budget how much you're giving, how much you're saving, how much you're spending on bills. So once you put that budget together and you're working on that and you figure out, okay, I have about maybe, let's just call it 50 extra bucks to put in the 401k, see what 2% feels like. Okay. Then you start doing that for 3 months and see what it feels like. Okay. Then you go to 4%. See what that feels like. Because what's going to happen is that what inevitably happens, and I've done this with many clients, especially those individuals earning under $40,000, or what most of those I was working with for free, was that what's happening, they start to stretch themselves. It's a gradual stretching that happens, where all of a sudden that 2% or that 10% that they say they could never afford in their 401k, because they started at 2, and they went to 4, then they went to 6, then that's at 8, and now they're at 10 a year and a half later. You know, they're doing 10%. And I remember a few clients saying, you know what? You're putting 10% in your 401k now. Remember a year and a half ago where you said you would never be able to afford putting 10% in your 401k, and you still wouldn't be able to budget? You've got an emergency fund now, and you got the emergency fund, you put money, you got your budget together, and you're putting 10% in your 401k. So, yeah, I do remember that conversation. I said, well, I just wanted to remind you that you said you couldn't do it. And now you're doing it because they were able to stretch. And inevitably, especially when things are automated, inevitably what happens, you start to change your spending habits and you start to form your spending around what you actually can sustain. And you can sustain things a lot more than you would ever even believe, but you have to budget and figure out what you can sustain first. So start small, gradually increase it. And then at the end of the day, you're going to start seeing your budget start to mold and take shape according to what truly is a precedent in terms of your savings, which is what should be the precedent in the first place.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to probably only be able to get 2, maybe 3 more questions in, but let me ask this one right here. What do you recommend that a person who wants to teach financial literacy or money management to underserved communities and others do to get started?
Man, just do it, man. Like that. I love this question because it touches my heart, right? Because this is where the rubber hits the road, And when you're dealing with folks who are in homeless shelters, first of all, they're just happy that you're there, okay? They're happy that you're there. And I can promise you, the best way to learn something is to teach it. There's a homeless shelter in your community right now who meets regularly that would love to have someone come in and just talk to them about credit. So pick up a book and read about credit and go to the homeless shelter and have a conversation. You don't have to be an expert to do it. You don't have to be an expert to go in the prison. Man, there's a great organization called the Prison Entrepreneurship Program. They picked up multiple copies of my book every year, and I try to go down to Texas every year to just talk to them. But they have many volunteers that just sign up to go inside the prison and teach. You can go to any prison in your community and just walk in there. And you got to get approved, and you have to go through the background checks and get your fingerprints and all of that. You might have some problems. I've had many individuals who were also formerly incarcerated come in with me. They've had to go through a couple of different checks and balances to do that. But when you go into that prison, man, they're so happy to see you. They're going to be so happy to receive you. You don't even have to have a prepared curriculum. You just want to say, let's just talk and vibe about something. And many times, if you talk to the right program, but like in Detroit, where I'm at, where I live, a few of those in prisons, they have structured programs because they do have a lot of good resources. So you might have to do a little bit more resource checking out to see which organizations are already going. You can piggyback with them. My first program with All About Business I was talking about, I just volunteered my time to go to the school every Wednesday at 4 o'clock after school was done. So I didn't get paid a dime for it. And I mean, I always like to tell the joke, I was the brokest man to ever appear in Black Enterprise. Because at the time, I was just starting my business. And we all know out there, you starting that business, man, it's a struggle. You talking about getting your lights shut off. My lights got shut off. There's nothing but faith that kept me going. My heat got shut off. I always paid my rent. But all that stuff got shut off, but I knew I had a vision that's going to keep me going. But I had to volunteer my time, even though I was going through those financial struggles. I was volunteering my time with those kids. And that gave me the exposure in Black Enterprise, and that led to CNN. But that was a free program. These kids are waiting on y'all, man. They are waiting on you to come and bless them with your knowledge and your capital. So you don't have to read a book on whoever's book, my book, whoever's book. Boyce has a lot of books. I have books. Read a book and go to a school and just spend some time with the after school program and teach it. And they're going to be so grateful that you did it. And it don't take a lot of time, and you'll be happy. You'll come home filled. And I can promise you'll be blessed by it. So that would be my suggestion.
All right, so I have one final question that I'm going to ask, and I'm going to actually make it a combination question. And then I want to go back to a statement that I want both made. So this question, I'm going to combine Dee Williams' question with Chimmery's Cafe's question, okay? And let me know if you can answer this. It's kind of off of finances a little bit. Okay. I read that having a home-based business will help lower your taxes, but I don't know which business platform, LLC, partnership, corporation, etc. In addition, what should I focus on that will not take up too much of my time? That's the part A. I'm going to combine it with this one. What are some passive incomes for people working 60 to 80 hours a week on the job? Again, I don't know if this is technically a finance question, but I figured I'd at least throw it out there to you.
Well, the first part is, yes, you can. If you have a home-based business, depending on how much money you're earning, you can get a certain amount of that deducted from your taxes. So what I would do is definitely, whether being an enrolled agent, a CPA, or a tax attorney. These are the three types of individuals that can represent you in court. An enrolled agent or a tax attorney, they can represent you in court. My tax attorney, my accountant guy, Edwin Davis, he's an instructor, and he teaches about this type of stuff. So I like him because he sits down. This is, I guess, a side point is whenever you're dealing with individuals and putting your financial team together, make sure you work with individuals who like to teach you, who like to talk to you. They don't just run the stuff together. If they, and again, you might be busy, might not want to teach it, but at least have access and availability to it. Well, Edwin Davis, for me, he's written multiple books about this stuff. And so we talk about this stuff all the time, and he helps me really put together a good strategy. I have an LLC. So for me, it works for me. You can do that under any entity as far as getting a tax deduction of it. If you're making enough money now, if you're not making that much money now, you might have a little bit of a problem being able to get that deduction. And I know this because when I was first starting Optimum Capital, I wouldn't make that much money. He said, yeah, you can get a deduction for your taxes, but you ain't making that much money yet, bro. So you might want to hold off on that. So, but the next year I was able to get that deduction. So he helped me to do a lot of that. But as far as the 60 to 8 hours a week in terms of, well, the question was working 68 hours a week and do something on the side. Was that the question?
Yes, the question was, what are some passive incomes for people working 68 hours a week on a job? So
there's all different types of passive incomes. There's basically you working your 9 to 5 so you can work your 5 to 9. I mean, that 5 to 9 to me is the most important job out there, because once you get off that 9 to 5, now you start to maximize your capability of thought and your creative juices. The one passive income that I would highly suggest that you do is one that fits in your passion. We get a lot of thought of people coming up to you saying this multi-level marketing company, this and that. Listen, if your passion is selling widgets, if that's what you like to do, if your passion is selling lemonade, and if that's what you think that God has given you the ability to do, you need to sell some lemonade. But if someone comes to you and says, look here, you need to go ahead and do this prepaid legal. If you're not passionate about it, you're not going to sell it. If you need to do this, what's another multi-level marketing thing, or Avon or something of that nature. If you're not passionate about selling those products, you're not going to make money off of it. So I don't have a problem with multi-level marketing companies. I do have a problem with multi-level marketing companies that give you a false perception of what they have the ability to do and give a transparent, a realistic objective, because any business, whether you're a financial advisor or a doctor or selling Avon, any business, if you work hard at it, you're going to make some money, and especially if it's in your passion. So whatever they decide to do to make money on the side, just make sure that they love it, make sure that they're dedicated to it, and make sure that they have the ability to learn and to grow within it. Because if it doesn't give you the opportunity to learn and grow within that business, it's probably a waste of time for you. You want something that can add to you. I mean, I'm learning every day in finance. It's like so much information out there, and I'm always learning, and I'm learning from the people that I interact with. I'm learning different strategies. I'm learning how to see if we can do a scalable movement that can be, so there's so many different things. So this has been, I've taken my passive income strategy that I used to do on the side when I was at Wall Street to make it my full-time thing since 2004 now. So I love it. I can't get enough of it. And this is what you should be doing if this is going to be something that's on the side. And if you feel that way about it, that passive strategy It's going to be your full-time strategy before you even know it.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to read this comment. I think it was a reply to the initial comment we're talking about politics and candidacy earlier. So I'm going to read it and then we'll close out. Sorry, I wanted to share this with the attendees as well. Let me tell you guys, I'm a PhD student in a neuroscience department at a public university. The department was started by a white professor who hired most of the founding faculty. Most of these faculty have awarded themselves $200,000 to $250,000 salaries, all paid by government grants. Going into government makes sure that Black-owned firms get government contracts and that Blacks are protected at all levels of the labor market, especially six-figure careers supported by government funds. I know because my own advisor, a white man who moved here from the Netherlands, and someone who is sympathetic to white supremacists like Charles Murray, is receiving $250,000 a year and is married to a white female neuro professor earning $240,000 a year. So I think that they were just coming back to re-emphasize their point on that and getting involved, getting government contracts, going after that from a political standpoint. So I just wanted to bring that back around. All right, so I will close with Linda, I think it was. Can you please provide this gentleman's name, website, and books for us to have, please?
Well, my name is Ryan Mack. I'm working with Mobility Capital Finance. That's Mocafi, MOCAFI.com. Also with Optimum Capital Management. My website, I guess, livinginthevillage.com. That's about it. I'll be seeing y'all around. We're gonna be doing some stuff. Look, y'all. Forget all this. We're gonna start a movement around this stuff. You understand what I'm saying? We need a movement, and it starts. Dr. King, my mentor, Andrew Young, said Dr. King started a movement with 70 people. 70 people. So that means if we got 71 people, we already got more than what Dr. King had to start a national movement. All we need is for y'all listening out there to start budgeting, start saving, start your business, promote other people's business, get excited about promoting other people's business, give constructive criticism to those businesses that might need a little bit extra help. Don't blast them on Yelp. Go to them privately and say, listen, let me write you a letter. The service at your business was just not as good as I would like it to be. Here's how you can improve it. I just wrote a letter to a Black-owned business the other day. The service was awful. I didn't blast it on Yelp. I wrote a letter to the owner and said, look, let me tell you what's happening in your business. Y'all got to get it together. Because it happened to me. My service, when I started selling insurance in 2004, it sucked. Somebody told me, Ryan, your service sucks, man. You slow. It's just too long in underwriting. I had to hire somebody to help it out, but it turned around. That's where I made most of my money from. But it came from constructive criticism, from people telling you, yo, you suck, bro. I was mad. I didn't like it, but it was that love, man. It was that love of somebody telling me, like, yo, this is real talk, bro. You got to get it together if you want to grow your business. So all these things together, we can start a national movement where we don't have to ask anybody for anything. Black Wall Street is not a fallacy. It's real. It can be recreated, duplicated, simulated, and we can do it all starting from you in your house. That's where it starts, right in your room, right where it's at. And I'm excited to get it going. We got to get it going.
Boom! Mr. Ryan Mack, I thank you so much for being here with us today at the Black Business School.